Good morning, everyone. So in today's class, okay, we briefly review the previous class work and then we discuss about periodic frequent pattern mining model. Okay, so in the previous class, we talked about frequent pattern model. Okay, next we talked about search space, and then we talked about a priori property. Okay, so for first 10 minutes, let us review these 3 points. So let's start with frequent pattern model. The best way to remember the frequent pattern model is using the following keywords. I, P, TDB, SCF. So if you remember this word, okay, IP, TDB, SCF, you will always remember the frequent pattern model. The reason is each word here represents a word, a variable or a term. So I means set of items. P means, okay, we can say subset of I, which means pattern. Okay, I for all items. P is a set of items, which is a pattern. T, okay, which is nothing but a TID, comma pattern, is a transaction. DB means database, which is a collection of T1, T2, so on up to Tn. So this is the database. S means okay. So we have to use S of X. So support of pattern P, and F is a frequent pattern whose support of is greater than or equal to user specified minimums. So this is the model that you have to remember. Okay, so every time we talk about the pattern, okay, so this is the basic terminology. IP, TDB, SF. I represents set of items, P represents a pattern, T represents a transaction, DB represents a database, S represents support, okay, and F represents frequent pattern. So this terminology, please remember. If you have any doubts in understanding, please let me know. Any doubts? Please don't keep quiet. If you have any questions, please raise them. Any doubts? Okay. So if you have no doubts, then we will move to the next topic. So the next topic is search space. The search space, what it says is, if I have items, okay, so I is a collection of items. So assume I have A, B, C. If I have three items, A, B, C, the search space is non-empty, EMPTY, non-empty supersets of I, that is A, B, and C. So such space is nothing but the supersets of A, B, and C here. So when we draw like this, A, B, C, A, B, A, C, B, C. So this is called search space. So this structure is called lattice. Otherwise, we also call it cube. Okay. So what do we call this structure? This structure is called lattice or cube. This size of it is 2 power n minus 1 is the size. So the size of the lattice is 2 power n minus 1. So in this case, it is 2 power 3 minus 1, which is 7. Okay. So please remember this terminology: IP, TDB, SF, followed by 2 power n minus 1 of such space. Now, we just discussed the a priori property. Okay. So assume I have a very big data set. Okay. I am not giving you number of transactions. Infinity, or I don't know, whichever you want, you can, okay. I am hiding that information. Now, bread. Sorry. So in this database, bread appeared 5 times, okay, in some transactions. Yes. Any doubts? Otherwise, please mute yourself. So bread appeared in 5 transactions. Okay. Jam. Jam appeared in 3 transactions. Okay. So support of bread is 5. Support of jam is 3. Now guess. Okay, I am not giving you the database size. Okay, so please guess. Guess number of transactions Sunima-san, please keep quiet. So number of transactions that contain both bread and jam. So this is your question. So maximum number. Okay. So please tell me the maximum number of transactions that contain both bread and jam. So anyone give the answer?
3.
3. Okay, any others? Anyone wants to say 5 or 5 plus 3 by 2, something like this? Average of the 2 items. Others, any answer you have? Or only 3? Students, please answer. Are you guys here or simply listening to me? So the answer is very simple. It will always be the minimum. So the minimum of support of bread, comma, support of jam. So always the lowest one will give us the hint on the maximum number of transactions that can contain bread and jam. Okay, so here you can see here. So bread and jam appear here, here, and here. Okay, so it's always the minimum of 5 and 3. Okay, so this is called anti-monotonic property. What anti-monotonic property says is, okay, always as the length of the item set increases, its support may fall. Okay, for example, if Y is a superset of X, okay, what is Y here? Let us think A, B, C is a superset. X is simply A. In this case, support of Y will always be less than or equal to support of X. So this is called anti-monotonic property. Okay. So from this property, anti-monotonic property, we get a priori property. That is, if support of X is less than minimum support, okay, then any superset of X will also have support less than minimum support. So this is the logic we apply. So to understand it, let us create one more slide here. So what I'm trying to say is, this is the rule. Okay, please keep it in mind. So first is X is a subset of Y. So let us think X is, okay, in your language, bread comma jam, or let us say X is bread comma jam. And I am saying y1, that is bread comma jam comma butter, which is a superset of X. Similarly, I am taking y2, bread comma jam comma bread jam butter milk. Okay, it is also a superset of X. Y3, bread jam books. It is also superset of X. So on. I am taking YK. So bread jam books. Okay, it can be so on, which is also superset of X. Okay, so we have a base pattern. So let us think this as a base pattern. Okay, this is not the normal terminology that people use, but for your understanding, I am trying to. Okay, so X is called base pattern. Okay, all of these Y's, okay, variations of Y are super patterns because they are the supersets of the base pattern. Now, if you observe carefully, okay, support of bread comma jam will always be greater than support of bread jam butter. Okay, as you increase the items in an item set, its frequency falls down. Okay, It can't be more always. So if you do similar way, we can establish the relation. That is, support of X will be greater than or equal to support of Y P, where P is 1 to K. Okay. So if we generalize this statement, what happens is support of X will always be greater than or equal to support of Y. Okay. Having said that, now let us do one more thing. Okay. So support of bread, comma, jam, okay, in the database is 4. Okay. In counts, minimum support count, it is 4. Okay. Similarly, minimum support count the user is specifying is 5. Now please answer. Bread, jam, butter. Which of the following conditions is correct? So this is condition 1 and this is condition 2. Among these two given conditions, okay, please tell me which of the following is correct. Unmute yourself and you can talk. Otherwise, all students have to answer it in the chat. I will be watching the chat. So please answer in the chat. So the time is 3 minutes. We will spend time on the chat. Yes. All students are saying the answer is 2. Yes, this is correct. Okay. Thanks to the a priori property or the anti-monotonic property, 2 is the correct answer. All of you have said the 2. No one has said this one. Okay. This can't hold it. Okay. So if this fails the test, okay, then all the supersets will also fail. Okay, so we can use this property. Okay, if X fails, okay, all supersets fail the test. Okay, so this is the beauty, okay, of anti-monotonic or a priori property. Using this property, we mine the real world data sets. So now let us look at the fundamental algorithm on how to use a priori property to use in frequent pattern mining. Okay, so the popular or the base algorithm is called a priori algorithm. Okay, so the logic behind this algorithm is very simple. Generate candidates. Okay, please remember, candidate is a mathematical term. Okay, candidate means I don't know whether he will be a possible person or not. Okay, that satisfies the test. So that's why we have US president candidates. Okay, so you don't know who is going to be the president of the US. So you call them as candidates. Okay, so you think these are worthy. candidate means worthy of something. Okay. So you first find the candidates and you test them. Okay. And then you choose them as frequent or the president of US. Same logic. You generate candidates, okay, and you test them. And once a candidate passes the test, okay, you call the candidate as a frequent pattern. So this is the logic. Okay. So how do we implement this candidate generate and test one? We do it in very simple 2 steps. Okay. First one is we find frequent K patterns. Okay. K here means the length of the pattern. Okay. If I have A, B, C items, then K is 3. Okay. It is called K item set because if there are 3 items, then it is called 3 item set. Similarly, we call it K items. So first is very simple. Find K patterns and from them we generate K plus CK, that is candidate K patterns, okay, by joining K plus K, LK minus 1. Sorry, my bad, I messed up it. So the first step is I have written it wrong. First, we find LK minus 1, where K is greater than or equal to 2. Okay. So first is we find LK minus 1 patterns, and from these patterns, we generate candidates by joining. Okay. So we generate candidates by joining LK minus 1. So this is the join symbol. If you have done database, you might have remembered. This is the join symbol using LK minus. Now you scan the database and then you find frequent K patterns. So let us do it with the example so that you will be easily understanding the concept. So this is our data set. Okay. So this is our TDB. Okay. Our minimum support is 3. Now what we do is, first step, we generate candidate C1. Okay. So you first write down all the items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Next, you scan. Okay. And then you measure the counts. Okay. Next, using the minimum support, you prune the candidates. Our minimum support is 3. So we prune H, we prune G. Okay. So from the candidates which were not pruned are called, okay, frequent 1 patterns. Okay. Or we can call L1. Okay. So this is the symbol we use. So after finding candidates, we scan the database, measure the supports, and we prune infrequent ones. The remaining ones are called frequent items. Now what we do is we take these items, okay, and then we generate C2 by joining L1 with itself. Always we do self join. When we do it, what will be the C2 will be? C2 will be like this. AB, AC, AD, AE, AF, BC, BD, BE, BF, so on. Okay. We generate candidates like this. Okay. Once we generate these candidates, we again scan the data set and we do. Okay. So this is the candidate. So now what we are doing here. Okay. So we have generated candidates, but we don't know the supports. Okay. So what we do is you scan the database again. So you go to back to the database and count the number of times each pattern has happened, each candidate pattern has appeared. Okay, and write them down. Once it is done, okay, now using minimum support, you prune them. Okay, so our minimum support is 3. So prune. Okay. We will prune this one. So you can see, once we prune the candidates, we found frequent 2 patterns. Okay, we got L2. From L2, what we have to do is we have to generate C3. How do we generate? We need L2 self-join L2. Okay. So when we do L2, first we have to do is AB, and let us take the self. Okay. C. Okay. AB join AB will not work. When we do it, okay, you observe carefully. Okay. And in the generally students, what they do is if they have the pattern, they simply say ABC, ABD. No, we should not generate, because if you see here, okay, AC is not frequent. Similarly, AD is not frequent. Okay, that is why we don't do that. Remember this step very carefully. When you do the join, okay, you should have all the combinations. Okay, but if you see, there is no common element. AB, CD. Is there a common element here and here? No, there is no common element. So we cannot generate. Next, you take EF. Are there any common elements between the two? No. So delete. Next, you take CD, EF. Are there any common elements? No common elements. So we don't. So we cannot generate any more pattern. If you have a common element, let us assume, okay, CE also has support of 3. In this case, what happens? AB join AC will give you ABC, because we have the common element. If we don't have a common element, we cannot generate the superset, because it is going to fail the test due to a priori property. So what we do is we simply stop the mining process. Okay. And then what we say is L1 patterns and L2 patterns are frequent. So this is what we try to do. Okay. Hope this topic is clear. Okay. Once we generate the frequent patterns, okay, next what we will do is we will look at association rule mining. So this is very easy, okay, and easiest step. Okay, so we know X is a frequent pattern. Okay, what we have to do is, once you have identified a frequent pattern, you split X into 2 sub patterns, Y and Z. Okay, so you split the pattern into two parts, okay, such that their intersection is empty, okay, means there should not be any common elements. So y and z should not have common element. So you split them, okay, distinctly. Once you split them, okay, then you measure the confidence. So the formula is support of y union z, that is support of x by support of y. This is the formula, okay. Once you do this, you understand, okay, how the items are associated within the pattern, okay. So if you look at the pattern AB, okay, in our data set, AB is a frequent pattern, okay, because it appeared more than 3 times. It appeared 8 times in the data. Now, when I am generating A implies B, okay, so I will write it in English. A implies B. What it says is, when A occurs, does B occur? Whenever A occurs, does B occur? So this one, or you can say whenever people purchase bread, do they purchase jam? Okay. So here, if you see here, 8 people have purchased bread and jam, okay, or AB, and B bread alone or item A alone was purchased 12 times. And when we do it, we got this one, okay, means 67% of the time people who have purchased bread have also purchased jam, okay. Similarly, when we reverse it, okay, then it becomes B implies here. The value is 0.8. What it says is 89% of the time, whenever I purchase jam, I purchase bread. Okay, we generate these two kind of rules. Now, by using the constraint called minimum confidence, okay, we can select interesting rules. Okay, so if I say minimum confidence is 0.85, that is, any rule should happen at least 85% of the time, then we simply say AB as an interesting association rule. Okay, so this is how we do it. Now I have explained you the topic. Now all students, I think all of you had enough time, okay, to complete the a priori algorithm. In the a priori algorithm, do any one of you find any problem with it? You guys, all of you have done it, right? So if you felt any difficulty in doing, let me know. Any answer? Please don't keep mum. Answer. Have you found any difficulty when you are doing a priori algorithm? If you faced any difficulty, let me know. Because that difficulty is the research. Okay? Whenever you are doing something and you find this is difficult or cumbersome to do, that thinking, okay, will give birth to advanced topics. Okay, so that is how we push the state of the art. So students, take this request seriously. Okay, don't keep quiet. So answer me. Okay, So because most of you are Japanese and face difficulty in understanding, I will write down. A priori algorithm. Okay, I received one message in the chat. A little difficult. I understand. So what is the difficulty you faced? Okay, so have you found any difficulty in implementing? If yes, if your answer is yes, okay, what is the difficulty? Please let me know. Any answer? Anyone? Just even if it is wrong, don't worry. Okay, please answer it. Okay, you want me to teach one more time? Okay, I will teach you, Fujita-san, and I will be doing that here only. Okay, so Fujita-san wants to learn it one more time and we will do it, no problem. But any others? Do you feel, have you felt any difficulty in implementing the a priori algorithm? No? Okay, so you guys don't see the problem yet. Okay, so let me help you. Okay, so for the researchers, okay, when we are implementing a priori, okay, I got one more chart. If you have AE and AF, then you have to generate AEF because there is a common element A. Tarun, if you have common elements AE and AF, you have to generate AEF. Now coming back, okay. My difficulty is counting, or let me say clearly, scanning the database and counting support for candidate. Okay, so my difficulty is every time I generate a candidate using join, I have to go back to the database and I have to count every time. Okay, that is very laborious because your code, all the algorithm will also do this. Okay, so you have to go to the database, you have to scan, and then you have to update the support counts. Okay, same as humans feel difficulty. Okay, machines also face the same difficulty most of the time. Okay, so this is one of the difficulty when I write or when I code. Can we make it faster? Or you can think, can I simplify the algorithm? Okay, so this point gave the birth of another algorithm, a variant of a priori called TID. Okay, so how can the philosophical thought, okay, or the research motivation is, I don't want to scan database multiple times. Okay, so philosophical question. Okay, can I reduce the database scans? Okay, so this is the philosophical question. How do I reduce the database scans? It is so much time consuming. Okay, and it is moving. It's very difficult for me to build. So how do I reduce? So when people face this problem, they came up with the concept of TIDs. So TIDs are nothing but you maintain the list. Okay, so the idea is maintain the lists. Okay, so how do we implement it? Very simple. So this is same as a priori algorithm, but in a better way. So now what we do is you take the items. Okay, so I am generating C1. So the C1 is going to be, I am not going to write each and every one. Okay, I simply explain the concept and we will do, and you guys take care. Okay, now no more spoon feeding because I have explained a priori. I explain at the higher level so that your brain gets matured. Okay, so I am simply taking A, B, C, D. I am taking only 4. I am not taking the rest. Okay, I have generated C1. Okay, now I don't know the support. So what I do is, instead of counting the database for each item, I will maintain a list. For A, I will maintain the list. So A appeared at 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 18, 19. Okay, so these are the TIDs. So for each candidate pattern, I maintain TID list. Okay, someone please tell me for B, what are the TID list of B? Please unmute yourself and speak. Anyone can say, or you want me to choose in random? Anyone who wants to tell the lists of B? Okay.
Wrong.
Who is it? Please introduce yourself. Okay, KSK sir. Okay, please tell me B for 1. Next.
And 4.
Hmm?
4.
Okay. 4,
7.
7,
10.
Okay.
11,
11.
13,
13.
16,
14 contains B, right?
14,
Okay.
16,
Hmm.
19. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. Someone else, can you say for C? Please
3,
tell me for C.
3,
Just a minute. 3. Okay.
5,
5.
6,
6.
9,
9.
12,
12.
15,
Okay.
17,
Okay.
18,
18.
20,
20.
20.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Someone? Okay. Thank you very much. I need for D. Please tell me for D. Someone, please tell me for D.
Oh, okay. 3,
Okay. 3.
5,
5.
9,
9. Okay.
15,
Okay.
17,
Okay.
and 20.
This is the one. Okay. Thank you. So you maintain this list for all other items. Okay. I'm not going to explain for everything, but once you have the list, okay, now what you can do is you can simply do length of A or size, whatever, okay, depending upon how you are maintaining. You can maintain this list as a list, a vector, or an array, okay, dynamic array. You can use the structure, and depending upon it, you simply perform length or size. It does not matter, okay. Once you do the length, okay, you will know the support. You don't have to maintain the support, okay, please. So this is implicit. You simply, in the if loop, if length of A is something greater than minimum support, you take something like this, okay. So don't store it, okay. I will tell you the reason later, but don't store it. Now please tell me the count. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. So what if you do the length, you will get the answer, okay. So we don't need to do it. So you can collect this information in the runtime, okay. Similarly for B, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and this is 3 4 5 6. Okay, by simply, if you have the list, okay, by simply measuring the length, you know the support counts. Okay, now my question to the programmers, okay, so people who think you are good at programming, my philosophy, my question, okay, what is the time complexity, PLEXITY, of length of X? So if you want to measure the length, okay, if you give length of something, what is the time complexity? How much time it will take? Okay. So assume A is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Okay, so this is the length. Now, what is the time complexity? Okay, I give you the hint. Is it order 1 or order n or order n by 2, which does not exist, log n or order n log n? What is the time complexity? Whenever you measure the size of a list, what is its time complexity? How much time the algorithm will take to measure the length of a list or an array? Let me know. Please tell me. Even if it is wrong, no problem. Please let me know. If you say the length of something, okay, I think every time you will be using the length, right? What is the length of this? What is the length? How much time you spend in measuring the length? Everyone can answer, including my students. Please tell me what is the time complexity. If you want to answer in the chat, okay, one student says order n. Okay. I think Nakamura-san is saying order n. Okay. What about others? Please either answer in the chat or speak to me. One student says order 1, who is Yuto. Okay, so most of you are saying order n. Okay, but please others answer. I need at least 3 more students to answer. Wrong or right, no problem. Please answer it. There are no marks for this question. Okay, so please answer. Please don't think if I have to answer only questions in the Moodle. Okay. Order n. Okay. So majority of you who are saying it as order n. Okay. So this is the majority vote. The minority vote is only 1% said order n and others have not chosen it. Okay. So this is how I got the answers from the students. Okay. Now the real answer is minority, order 1. Okay. Actually, this should be the answer, but there is an exception. Okay. Because the structure we use in most programming languages, okay, are designed to store. Okay. So if you use any length array or something, okay, because length is a very common operation, the structure they maintain is if you create a variable a, okay, you will not only create a list, okay, in addition to the list, you will have one more temporary attached to it. Okay, so this will store the length in the separate way. Okay, so if you want to update, okay, so a will store 1, the length will become 1. Then you put 2 here, the length will get updated to 2. Then length is 3, then it will become 3. 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, sorry, 7. Okay, if you put 10, 15, 16, then 7, 8, 9, 10. So it gets updated. And when you say the length of a, okay, it will go to here. So it will immediately come. So this is order of 1. If you have any doubts, you can do the search, okay, in the Google. In every programming language, because maintaining this very small space, okay, but the benefit is significant, okay. If you have a very large list with storing one more, okay, byte of information, you can give it efficiently. So every programming language implements lists, arrays, and everything in these two formats. So the length, finding the length is order 1. That is why your algorithms are fast. Otherwise, you could not have run your code. Okay. So please keep that in mind. Okay. I hope now that things are clear. So let's go back to the question. So if you simply do the length at one time, you will get the length. So use these lengths to find L1. Okay. So let us remove the things because we need the information here. So we have time. Okay, we are running out of time. Now, so now you found L1. Now L1 intersection L1 will give you C2. So how do we generate C2? So let us talk about AB. So how do we generate AB? It is very simple. You do the intersection of A and B. So how do we do this? You take 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 19. And intersection of 1, 4, 7, 10, 11, 13, 14, 16, 19. Now just find the common elements. So 1 appears here, 2 does not appear, 4, 7, 10, 11, 13, 16, 19. So your answer is 1, 4, 7, 10, 11, 13, 16, 19. Okay. So this is going to be your C2. Very simple process. And from C2, you just measure the length and generate L2. Same thing, okay? But here we maintain the list, okay? So now when we do such a process, we can do the things much efficiently. This is called a priori TID, okay? So I have given you the quiz in the a priori algorithm in the quiz for a priori TID, okay? So please go through it and answer the same question in terms of a priori TID. Okay. So this is the one point that I want to explain to all of you. Okay. A priori TID. And then there is one more algorithm called granular computation. Okay. So what this will do is, in the previously, you are maintaining the list, right? So A appeared at 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 18, 19. Okay. So we are maintaining such a big list. Okay. And storing each information requires 8 bits. Okay. This also requires 8 bits. followed by the pointers. Okay, because how do we store the information? You have the list, you put 1 here, the pointer will point to another element, 2, the pointer will point here, and so on. So, and at the end, it will end. So this is one, right? So you maintain so much space and you have to do the join, which is a very memory. Okay, it's better than a priori, but it takes lot of memory in the main memory, in the RAM. Okay, so what people thought of is, can I do it much faster? Okay, why do I have to waste so much of bits? Why can't I do with bits alone? So this was the philosophical concept behind granular computation. So what we do here is, each transaction is a bit. So let us assume we have 20 transactions, right? So what I do is, I convert the TID list. Instead of storing the TID list, I maintain the bit information. So how do I do it? Okay, I will take A. For A, okay, so A appeared at 1. So the first position is going to be 1. So A appeared at 2. So the second position is also 1. So the second bit, okay. So from bytes, we are going at the bit information, okay. Now A is not appearing at 3, right? So here I will say 0. So A appeared at 1. A is not appearing at 5. So the 5th bit is 0. The 6th bit is 1. The 7th bit is 1. There is no 8th bit, 8, right? So 0. 9 is also 0. 10 is 1. 11 is 1. 12 is 1. 13 is 1. Okay, 14 is missing, 0. 15, 0. 16, 1. 17, 0. 18, 19. Okay, so you maintain the list. Okay, even for the bits, if you do size, of A, you will get it. Okay, so the length you will get. So don't worry, it is almost the same thing. So once we do it, now let us take for B. Anyone say for B?
Yes.
Yes, please tell me.
1
Okay.
0
1,
0
0,
0
0,
1
1,
0 0
0,
0
0,
1
1,
0
0,
0
0,
1
1. Next.
1
Okay.
0
This one?
What?
0? What is the next one?
1
1,
1 0 1 0 1 0
0. Okay. So you create similarly for all the items. Okay. And then use the size. So this is C1. From C1, using the size, you generate L1. Okay. And when you generate C2, what you have to do is, AB is nothing but A intersection B. Okay, since everything is okay, so it is A and B. Okay, because everything is in the bits, this is the fastest operation that can be done. Okay, CPU can do this operation very, very fast, so fast. So what will be the answer? 1 1. So 1 1 0 0 0 0 0 1 1 1 0 0 1 1 1 1 0 0 1 0, sorry, 0 0 0 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 0 0 1 1 1 0 0 0 0 1 1 1 0 1 1 1 0 0. Okay, so this is how you generate for C2. Okay, you do this for everything. Once you generate this list, again you perform the size and you prune. Okay, so these are super fast. Okay, so if you look at the memory requirements, okay, a priori will take too much time. Okay, a priori TID will take little less time. Sorry, something has gone. So a priori TID will be here. Okay, GCT will be here. But each algorithm comes with a weakness. Okay, TID has its weakness, GCT has its own weakness. Okay, although these are faster, okay, they have one limitation. They can't work on very, very large data sets because you know the length of a list that you can do for an item is limited. Okay, so if I give you millions of transactions, you can't maintain the lists. Okay, you run out of memory lists. That is the reason they have this problem. Okay, a priori don't suffer from it because you simply scan. I will take more time, but I will give you the answer. I will take days, okay, maybe sometimes months, but I will give you the answer. But these are fast, but they have memory issues. If you have small data sets, it's okay. Otherwise, you suffer from memory. Okay. So this is the limitation that they face. Okay. So I have explained you two versions of a priori. Okay. So if you are a very good programmer, okay, you can take the coding of a priori, TID, or I think, and a priori GCT as your project work. Okay, basic project work in your course. Okay, so and today is the deadline for the submission of the two Q3 and Q4. So please complete them later. But I have to cover the periodic frequent pattern. So this is the actual topic. So now talking about frequent patterns. Okay, so a frequent pattern is called periodic frequent pattern if it is occurring regularly in the data set. So this is the same thing. Okay, so here we have the transactional data set. Okay, so assume each TID is a timestamp. Okay, so each TID is a timestamp, and each timestamp people are purchasing. Okay, so this is how. So I have explained you item, pattern, transaction. So I'm not going to explain the same thing. But what we do is, for each pattern, we maintain the list. Okay, so timestamps occurring containing bread and jam is 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. Okay. So we have these timestamps. So the length of the timestamps will give you the support. Okay, this I explained in a priori TID. Once we know the supports, now what we do is we try to measure how periodically a pattern is appearing. So how do we do that? We measure something called inter-arrival times. Okay, so that bread jam has appeared at timestamp 1. So the first timestamp is 0 minus 1. Okay, so we have to measure from the beginning of the transaction. So its value is 0 minus 1. So it's 1. Next one is 3 minus 1. Okay, that is 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. Similarly, we measure the gaps between the transactions. And once we measure the gaps, then what we do is we measure from the end also. The moment we complete at the end, we get the lists of periods. Okay, 1, so 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1. So we get these periods. Once we get these periods, what we do is we take the maximum period as the periodicity of a pattern. Okay, so maximum gap in the occurrence of a pattern. Now we say a pattern is periodic if its support is greater than minimum support and periodicity is less than the user specified threshold value. So if max period is 4 and sorry, if minimum support is 4 and max period is 2, means I am saying that I consider a pattern as periodic frequent if it occurs at least 4 times in the database and the inter-arrival time can't be more than 2. Okay, so once I specify it, then I am calling bread and jam as a periodic frequent pattern. Okay, so we will cover this topic further in the next class, but this is a very simple one. So please have a look at this one later. Okay, there is no assignment. I will be giving you the assignment in the next class. Okay, so please go through this one. Okay, about periodic frequent pattern, and this will be today's exercise. Okay, yeah. So thank you. We will now take the leave. See you in the exercise class.